Welcome everybody to Paladins Esports Weekly. We have plenty of content as always, including recaps of this previous week, predictions for this coming week, and even an interview. My name is LaTigris, here with Pretty Hair and Gormizer, but you turned front to start this time. No,
Oh, I forgot about that.
Last week
no
I hurt
swirl.
my knee.
You did.
I slammed it against the desk at one point. That bruise is finally gone, though.
The things you do for the content, Gore.
Gotta get it for the
things
content.
you do.
My nails are still painted.
This man would do
I don't know if
anything
that
for you,
video's even
chat.
come out.
He would do anything for you.
We got our secret content, guys. But I'll just have to see your painted nails in person, apparently. But first thing on the docket, we've got some console talk. So, Nick, thoughts on this previous week?
I mean, it's been great, especially some of these highlights we have from Prosper Logic. Some of these big boys in there hitting some big shots with Kinessa. That's one of the clips we've got for you guys today. Awesome stuff to see here, and seeing the sniper play kind of come to fruition on console, because this is not similar to PC, but not quite the same, right? Like even on like Timbermills, Frozen Guards, things like that, you used to just not see sniper play, but seeing it more and more now, and not only there on those traditional maps, but being able to see it on those kind of swing maps, I guess is the way you would want to put it, like the Stone Keeps, the Serpent Beaches, stuff like that, Frog Isles. You will see people prioritize snipers for the reason I think Prosper just did.
And he's hit the only shot that mattered at the tail end there. Like misses what, 4? I think there on the Inara before finally was just like, all right, I got her. Still gets the quadra.
I mean, for me though, like sometimes the easiest targets are actually the hardest ones. If someone's not moving, I will miss them once or twice, guaranteed.
Oh no, all the time.
I don't know what it is.
I don't know. I feel like it's because you're trying to compensate. You're used to having to track someone and figure it out,
right?
and then you're like, what?
They are going to move. They're going to respond to being shot, right? No,
There's
they're going to
no way
sit
this
still.
is actually the case, right?
It's a 200 IQ juke, the standstill, yeah. The deer in the headlights juke.
But seeing plays like that, it's really something very entertaining to us, as well as I'm sure the team feels really nice about it. But we also have Xbox, so Gore, starting with you.
I mean, Xbox is always, I think, the one that's interesting for me to watch because it feels like we always see these teams, you know, Vexed, I think, in Europe as well as like Fable, Elevate in North America, where they come in and they almost always dominate. Whatever week they happen to be in, you'll get either the two of them in the finals or one of them coming through and just having their way with the bracket. This week it was a little bit different. I think a lot of the teams that kind of get, I want to say, overshadowed by those behemoths got to come through and shine a lot. And I think it was Tully who had one of the bigger plays for Xbox this week, which was still phenomenal. We had some fun.
Pretty sick moment.
This is complete panic too. Like the whole screen goes dark, and you can even like during midnight, you can still like acquire targets if that makes sense. So he's targeting that Makoa, and the Bomb King rolls in, unfortunately. And that kind of goes a little bit further into what we're going to talk about, just like that combo play of the Bomb King and the Grok, because we haven't gotten to see Grok in a very long time. But at the start of the console series, Grok was actually a big staple. And he's only gotten better.
Their favorite champion, just because it was one of those,
he was like first pick.
Either CC immunity or tons of damage that you could get without having to rely too much on like consistent DPS. You just, I'm going to throw out the Shock Pulse and it's going to connect.
You know what I think it was? I think it was... There wasn't a ton of blaster players on console at the start, but like they've gotten so much better at the Drogos, at the Bomb Kings, that like snowbally death ball comp doesn't work anymore.
He's zooming.
And that's
Sonic
the combo.
with the zoomies.
Yeah, any sort of movement speed stim you give a Bomb King while he's winding up, he carries that or amplifies it even once he launches.
Especially when you see him around certain maps. I think on Bright Marsh we had where it's circled around the edge of the capture area, where it's not very easy to actually navigate while you're in that ultimate. But they just
He's just coming around Tokyo Drift style with his game bomb.
And it worked.
It did. I mean, because it comes at you 5 times faster than I think you're used to. Like you hear it in the distance, you're like, all right, he probably won't even make it here, right? And then he's just later, dude.
Yep. And because it's such a niche composition, no one's really expecting it as much anymore. That's what we got for console. Moving on to PC with PPL. So we all made our predictions and everything as far as it lining up. I think it was a bit predictable, but there was still some aspects that were kind of surprising to us.
I mean, NIP took their game, right? That was like the first game of the week, and I was like, oh man, like I thought this was going to be sweep. It ended up kind of being sweepy-ish week, but I think it ended up being some pretty good games in there for sure. NIP unable to grab the victory, of course, but they did grab the first game of their set.
It's one of those things where like the scores are the, I guess, overall sets. The way you would expect, like the winners who were the one that we thought were going to won, but it was not at all the way that you thought they were going to win. Like I didn't expect the Fnatic NIP set to actually be as close as it was. And honestly, I could have seen that maybe going 3-2 if NIP had been able to kind of adapt. I feel like Fnatic just figured out what was wrong and we're like, okay, we know how to fix this now.
And the way things have been going in EU, you talk about the fact that Mouse Sports did take a game off of Navi. There's still that step-up potential that we've been wanting to happen with those teams.
I don't believe that, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, but you saw it.
I sure did, and that was, again, part of these bottom teams, I think, starting to close the gap. Some of these teams making big moves, importing players if you're NIP, and that's kind of, it's weird, right? Because you've got Simsolo, who, frankly, was incredible this week, and sort of, you know, it's hard to say that he was the one that breathed new life into NIP. Maybe it was a team effort sitting down saying, hey, practice harder, practice this way, you know, bring some new champions in and overall. But they just looked so much better than they have in the spring split. So now it's tough to bench a guy that performs so wonderfully for you for Diggy Dog, but Diggy Dog is Diggy Dog.
Yeah, what do you end up doing after you have Simsaloo showing out, but you pick up Digidog?
I think it's in one of those areas that had it, if he was not coming from Australia, like if it was like someone already in Sweden or whatever like that, someone's already there, they'd say, look, maybe you stay a sub for another week. We're going to see how this goes. But it's like, well, I mean, you're coming from Australia. Like, if we already told you have the spot, like, you have to have the spot no matter how well he's performing.
And, it's good for Sims, I think, though, to be on that team even for a week, just to have that in his reel that he can apply to other teams with and say, look what I was able to do against some of the best teams in the world with some of the best teams in the world. Like, I can play. I can really be an asset to your team.
In NA, we saw more variation with the style of gameplay brought, particularly with G2 and their 4 DPS composition.
So a couple of reasons that this doesn't surprise me is that A, it's G2. B, I think with the role swaps they've made recently, this makes a little bit of sense and maybe is a little bit expected because it's like we need to get this composition. I don't care how we get there. We just need to get this composition. And then kind of like the final point is that was a fish market game against SK. If there's a bunch of frontliners banned, I wouldn't want to play a solo frontline on Fish Market. That's got to be the last map that I would want to play solo frontline on. So I kind of get it, but I think this was more a style points or a flex for G2.
It was one of those things, if they weren't G2, like if that was something that was maybe a little bit closer, like Splice SK, that doesn't happen, but they come through, they change it up. They make it a fun, interesting game just because it's like, you don't actually know if they're going to win with that kind of composition going into it. Because it's like, you guys are really good. But are you that good to make this actually show off the way you want it to? The answer was yes.
Well, Nick, you said you had spoken to Kyle before about it. Was this a composition they'd been dwelling on for a bit of time?
They were saying something about. They said something about it on Twitter. I think it was Cuss. He was just like, "Has anyone done 4 DPS before?" And then Theo was like, "Yeah, we did it against the 4 tank comp from VP. Someone did it on Ice Mines. They ran, I think, against that. And then I think one team did it on like a Frog Isle game just because. I can't remember if it was Navi or Fnatic, but it was one of those two. But yeah, I think Cuss was excited to be he was excited to be the first one to 4 DPS it up.
So we did make our predictions before, and taking a look at exactly how everything shook out, and we were pretty solid across the board as far as who we were vying for during the last week. And it brought some of the percentages back up, and you, Nick, still at 100%.
I think that's going to change this week, though. Just being completely candid with you folks. I think I'm out of it this week. I don't know. I think last week was, frankly, a pretty easy one to predict if you're just going off history. But with the way that things are evolving, some of these teams are closing the gap a little bit, so to speak. We get our first real NVG2 matchup with Rock Monkey available, and that's... Really, if you look at it, I mean, Envy has beaten G2 somewhat consistently, and with G2 making the bigger changes over the spring, so Envy making no changes, my gut's just telling me that like if Envy are just playing as good, like a normal day in the office, they don't have to like pop off or anything. They should be able to eke out a win here over G2.
So with week 3 on the way this Monday, so it's all kicking off tomorrow, are there any particular matches you're looking forward to most?
That's the one for me. NVG2's got to be mine.
Yeah, that's the one out of all of them I think that stands out the most for me. Just 2 top teams going at it. Maybe Fnatic Na'Vi, but I feel like we've seen that one so much over the past like month and a half that it's still like, oh man, no one knows who really is going to win it.
Right.
But we know it's probably going to go all 5 games. It's probably going to go down 3-3 at the tail end. It's going to be one big play that really makes the set, because that's how every single one of their sets seems to go.
Yeah, for my money, I actually, we'll get to it later, but I've got Na'Vi this week, and I'll talk about why later.
But first up, it's Mouse Sports versus Virtus Pro.
Yep.
We've seen this battle before. What do you think it would take for Virtus Pro to finally get that edge and grab the victory?
Well, it's always been pretty close, right? It's always been a very good set, even though it's battle for the bottom technically. Those two teams tend to be pretty even, to where sometimes it can look like Fnatic Na'Vi. Sometimes these guys really go at it and scrap these games out. That being said, I think Mouse have looked better as of late, and I keep saying this, but it is a matter of time. VP just made that switch onto Mary Jane, bringing him into the roster. So maybe this is the week, right? They get all the boots on the ground and they get something going.
It's just one of those things. I feel like a lot of the success from VP lately has been like Mary Jane just doing, I want to say normally, as long as you're not like, you're not feeding, you don't have to pop off, you're just having a regular game. And then Madara is actually popping off, having an excellent game. That gives them that chance to maybe push forward and find a win. But it's just such a big bank. Like, you have to just hope that's going to be a game set where it's like 3 games in a row you're going to be able to play Cassie, Leon, whatever, and you're going to be 11-0 every single time.
So who wins it, Gore?
I have Mouse for this one.
I have Mouse as well.
So not imagining too much of a shakeup to.
No, I don't think they I just think Mouse, they took game off Na'Vi, right? I think they're pulling ahead to the front of pack, which is good, right? You don't want to see teams. It's kind of like buffing and nerfing champions, right? Power creep is a good thing when responsibly handled. I think these teams are power creeping their way up towards the top, which is the way you want to see it go.
Virtus.pro is their doubleheader, though. They're also facing off against Fnatic, which is pretty tough for them, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if there's much to delve into for that one. I mean, Fnatic's Fnatic. Virtus.pro is not Fnatic. They're not Na'Vi. I think they might have some chances to make like some fights look good, but again, like you're relying heavily on like, can you guys have this stellar performance to just have an average game against Fnatic?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's a good matchup to not only test themselves, but for us to just see kind of on the barometer, like where are they falling right now? Where are they going to be able to compete? Is there picks that they can take away from? Is there anything that they've evolved? Na'Vi, I feel, it has been probably the biggest team in Europe evolving their game right now, and I think that's what could give them the edge later this week. But I still got Fnatic here at the end of the day.
So then, what do you think Virtus.pro needs to focus on? Is it the fact that one player head-to-head, like if it's, let's say, Elven Path versus Theo, like in front line, is there something there? Is it the overall strategy?
I think they try to, it's tough. Like the old Virtus.pro, I think, get their strategy of just hard to kill champions, whether that's things like EVs and Bucks are still in that conversation of hard to kill, track down, lockdown. They have good self-sustain, stuff like that. But I think if you let Fnatic, and this is really hard to not do, hence why they're at the top. If you can get Fnatic off of 3 comfortable DPS where they're spreading out the map and it's just Bittner versus someone else, Fishy versus someone else, Bugsy versus someone else, they win those. They take those. And that's why they're so good. When they can spread you out and just skirmish you down, they're some of the best players in the world. And even as a team, they can operate so nicely. But I think individually, they like to play their game, get a lot of 1v1s, and just beat you.
I think it's kind of similar. So get them off of things they're comfortable with, which is difficult.
Which is pretty much impossible.
Like 5 champions that they'd say, at a competitive level, I don't mind playing this, or this in a game. And it's like, how do we stop that?
Yeah.
And then you get Madara, Mary Jane on something super comfortable. Maybe it starts to eke a little bit over towards VP's favor, but again, it's going to be making it look more like just an average game against Fnatic. If they're doing incredibly well, then I think what we would normally see. And
again, I say a lot of times predictability is inherently a weakness. So if they can if VP can at least know what's coming, right, they can maybe, try and absorb some of the impact and turn it against Fnatic.
So you mentioned it before, but just to clarify, both predictions for Fnatic in this one?
Yeah.
Yep. They have the #1 spot, and it's going to take a lot to actually be able to thwart them from that. And moving on with Virtus.pro, they have their doubleheader. Fnatic, they do have another match later on throughout the week, but Splice also have a doubleheader ahead of them, starting off with Renegades.
Yeah. And unfortunately, Ozone did announce his kind of retirement from Paladins Esports, wanted to pursue a career type of opportunity for himself. And while understandable, it sucks because it's like he just got there. This guy's put in a ton of work to get there. He finally gets there.
Yeah.
And then he has to call it.
And we just saw it the week before. He was like, I'm stepping back from streaming. I want to work hard as a professional player and put the time into that. But then things changed over the weekend, and now he's actually stepping down.
And it sucks for me because I feel like Splice was finally looking like they were hitting that strategy.
Oh, yeah, they were.
Week 1, it was kind of like, okay, you're in the PPL, you're getting a feel for how these things go. Week 2 was like, all right, you've had that experience. These are going to be your first, like, not even like serious games, but these are the first like crackdown games. Now you're going into week 3 and you're like, these guys are looking good. Oh, by the way, here's one of your main players disappearing.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but because he's worked so hard to get here, because it's been such a long road for him, 90 different PGS teams he's played on, won on a bunch of them. I think I respect him that much more for making the decision, right? It's not an easy thing. It wasn't an easy thing for him to do, to say, I'm stepping back from streaming, because he's put so much effort there. And that's, I was like, wow, I really respect that. That's what's going to be best for him in the future. That's why, again, I got a lot of respect for this decision. I think it's must have very clearly been the right move for him, given how hard he has worked to get where he got.
Plus, he even said that he would still be involved in a PGS team. And I think even if he had to step completely back and said, I'm taking away from the scene and going full force with this other job still would have been very respectful. So on top of that he's saying, I still want to be involved and go back to PGS play is something that I think everyone can commend him for.
Yep.
And that's like, that's even more respect for me personally, because, you know, maybe he only has to play one night a week or something. I don't know when they play their PGS games, but just being able to stay in the scene, and the way I see it, it's like some, you know, retired pro that's just going to play with PGS teams, probably make a group of guys around him better, get them confidence, get them knowledge, get them experience, and then maybe just send them on their way, right? Whether it's to the PPL or something else, right? He is going to continue to, I think, make the scene better, and that's why I think I got a lot of respect for Ozone.
It's kind of one of those things, I mean, in a similar vein to Simsaloo, although completely different as well, where it's just one of those things like you are a really great player, something goes wrong, you have to step out of the pro scene, but you just keep grinding to make sure that you don't really fall off. And I feel like Ozone's in that area. It's like, I'm going to keep PGS. He's probably still going to play a lot of Paladins, a lot of ranks. Is going to be not falling off at all. And like you said, kind of bringing people up to the right level.
Yeah.
And then it's just one of those things. It's like, well, if I can't go pro and that team has an opportunity, he goes and does it again for another crew.
He'll go down in history as someone who made the scene better, I think, at the end of the day.
So then how do you think Renegades is going to fare against Splyce in their match?
They should be able, I don't know who's filling in for Ozone, but Renegades should probably be able to take this one.
Yep. So Renegades
for
prediction.
Renegades should have this unless the person they bring in for Ozone is just nutty. Which I don't know if that's possible with all of the talent.
They're going to import Simsaloo.
That would make things real interesting.
Oh my gosh, imagine that. He just goes full circle and comes all the way back. But all right, I think we're all on the page with Renegades against Splyce, but Splyce are also facing off against G2.
Yep. Kind of the same conversation. At this point, Fnatic VP, right? I got G2 here.
Yeah, G2.
It's kind of that simple for me.
Is going to just run through this one. I think we might see another 4 DPS. We could see 5 DPS.
Right, yeah, you could, because teams that are very flexible are hard to beat. When you are the underdog against a very flexible team, it is incredibly hard, because even like Fnatic, like G2 are just so unpredictable, and you could have any one of these picks going so many different ways. Like we've had in the past couple of months, the split, the year, whatever, we've had 3 different people play Eevee on this roster. We've had 3 different people play front lines. It's just like, it's so hard to lock down what the hell is going to happen when you square off against G2.
The fact that they've been able to lean on Vex so much as well.
I mean, he just doesn't die.
That was sick.
And it's one of those things, we were kind of looking at it, and it's just like that area, I guess, that when it comes down to it, him and Wardoom have just been going on streaks that are ridiculously high numbers, where they're just, okay, I'm going to sit back here. Like, their positioning's really good. Vex has, I think, the added benefit of being on G2, where it's just like, all I have to do is let you guys do your thing, and I'm just going to sit back here, Astromark, wherever it happens to need to be.
That's why that stat is way more impressive for Wardoom, because SKR are a very losing team right now, and he's still able to, I think, not only set the highest single game streak record with 48 or 49, but across the like 3-game span where he just didn't die. Even though like his team was losing, he still wasn't dying.
So, official predictions.
That's G2.
G to the 2.
G to the 2. And G2 still staying at the top of their region as well. And Fnatic, we mentioned they do have another matchup, the age-old story of Fnatic versus Na'Vi. What are you thinking?
This is going to be, it's always an incredible matchup, right? Yeah. But this week, I've got Na'Vi because I feel like they've just been making right? It's so hard to say like, who's at the top, right? Because, yes, Fnatic undefeated, but lost land, right? So Na'Vi, they're right in there. Yeah, this is a 51-49 matchup on any given week. But I feel like the strides they've made, especially with Mutu and creatives, moving them around a little bit, getting them a little bit more flexible. Mutu on things like Shaolin, Xin, and Drogos could be really, really instrumental for them in this matchup in particular, because then now they become less predictable. Mutu becomes, I think, a better player overall for them, and it's just a threat that Fasheko specifically hasn't had to deal much with. The Xin has been something that's okay for Na'Vi, but the Drogos hasn't been something super high on their list, and that's now changing.
I think at the end of the day, or I guess right before this, you could come in, you could flip a coin, like heads Fnatic, tails Na'Vi, and no matter what it lands on, you're just as likely to be right.
What, dude?
Because it's one of those areas that, like you said, Na'Vi's been on this entire like flex grind, where it's just they're coming in with things that I feel like we haven't gotten to see ever out of their roster, and now they're being able to pick that up. But Fnatic are still in that position of they've already had that flexibility, so it's still like the drafting I think is going to be really interesting to watch for this one, because it's going to be like, well, we don't mind that you grab that because we have a counter for it because we happen to be playing that 3 months for the last 3 months, and the same thing goes on the other side.
Right, and that clip from Muta just blows my mind. He lands a big reversal on that. Grover kills him. 16 HP, Terminus. I should probably just go face-to-face with his Terminus, right, and sucker punch him in the back of it. Like, that time, he flips his switch, and it's actually, like, the more you watch Mewtwo, the clearer it becomes to see. He just hits the switch sometimes where he just doesn't care about his HP bar anymore. Yeah. He just goes in. It does not matter. It's crazy to watch.
I've been loving what we've been seeing from Mewtwo. But as far as predictions go, going to start off with Gore. I think this is where we might see some variation.
Yeah.
I have Fnatic for this one, mainly because of history of online play, and that's really the only thing I think that might give them that like slight ledge up. Otherwise, I again think it's going to go to the final game, probably 3-3, and then someone's going to make a stellar play and win the game.
You don't have Fnatic for this one.
That's what I said in my email.
Well,
I know, because I circled all my stuff based on the email I
sent. Well, now you can't lose. So do you want to officially...
Final answer, Fnatic?
Officially?
I'm locking in Fnatic.
Fnatic, final answer for Gore. That's, I mean, again, 51-49 matchup. I can't argue with anything that you've just said at all. It's just objective facts. But for the reasons that I said, I'm going to go with Na'Vi. I think this could be the week for them. And I think because of, the Mewtwo flexibility. And again, it's going to come down to that big play. Who's going to make it this week? We don't know.
That's kind of where I'm at, where I think it can go either way. And the way that the sets have actually been executed, it's down to that last point who just pans out in that fight. But, hey, Fnatic until it's proven otherwise in this situation. That's kind of what I ended up throwing out there.
Yeah.
But after that match, it's going to be Ninjas in Pajamas versus Na'Vi.
This one could get interesting for sure. I think this one will get interesting. I think Diggy's got to be playing because Diggy moved to Sweden this weekend. He was flying in, getting settled. So I'm wondering if he's playing this week or not. But that'll certainly sway things a little bit. If not, I still think they have a decent chance, right? I think with Simsilo still subbing in there, I still think they have a decent chance, but I got to give this one to Na'Vi.
Yeah, I think this is one of those areas, especially with the way things went against Fnatic.
Yeah, if I'm going to have them beating Fnatic, I got to have them beating NIP.
Are probably going to take, I want to say Na'Vi take this one in a 3-1. I think NIP has what it takes to take one game.
I agree.
That's probably going to go long. Keep the next game pretty long, and then it's going to be, okay, Na'Vi hitting their stride where they're comfortable.
This will probably be one of those that even if it's 3-1, 3-0, in the history books, it's going to have been good games.
Yeah.
I don't imagine it'll be very one-sided. The only way is maybe if it's one of those things where it was taking longer to adjust to the changes than they expected. But NIP versus Na'Vi, then what are your official predictions?
Navy.
Navy.
Isn't that the name of the fairy? That's the fairy in Zelda.
Yeah.
Is it Navi or Navi?
I say Na'Vi.
Navi?
Yeah.
Is it because she navigates you?
Listen.
Yeah, I actually think that's what it is.
She's a Navi? Yeah. She's a Navi?
She's the navigator.
That's
Let's
actually her
just
long
GPS,
name
call
is
it a day.
Call it GPS. That is my
GPS,
fairy
come here.
GPS.
Twinkle your way on over to me. I got a question.
Where do I go?
How do I get to Mount Doom?
I think that's probably one of the best GPS. I wouldn't mind if it was just a fairy that popped out once in a while. They're like, hey, you're going the wrong way. I'm like, okay.
I saw a Snapchat the other day that was a lime green and neon pink porta potties on the back of a truck, and some dude on the highway behind the truck was like, Cosmo and Wanda, you ain't slick.
Oh my gosh, all these references, guys. But so NIP versus Na'Vi, we're all going in Na'Vi's direction. Yep. Next up, it's Team Envy with their doubleheader, and the first is G2.
Yep, talked about this a little bit earlier, but this is the biggest match of the week, in my opinion, because you haven't seen it yet, this split. You haven't seen G2 in their full force with their roles they're currently filling against Envy in the same roles that they have been filling this whole time, but with Rock O Monkey. This guy is going to be the big swing factor. I think he's their star player, one of them. I mean, Envy quickly becoming a star-studded roster through and through, and that's the way you have to be if you're going to take down a roster like G2.
I really feel like Envy is on their way to having the same kind of feel as Fnatic and Na'Vi, where it's just you don't know what these guys are going to play, but all you know is that they're going to be comfortable with it. And I think that's really been the secret is how do we get you comfortable on things that we're not used to seeing. We see Rock Monkey all the time on Cassie, we see him all the time on Shaolin. The Zen was kind of okay, well, I see where you're going with this, but why not the Cassie or the Shaolin? It's just you need those games, especially in the PPL, I think, when you're up against a team like Renegades, where you can say, I'm going to try to get this to that competitive level where I can just phone it in whenever I need it.
An X factor that we just haven't talked about yet, I think, is whoever's team has been slacking off playing more Realm Royale is probably going to be at a disadvantage this weekend. I know Random Noob has been deep in the queue. Yeah. Solo Squad. He made an account named Solo Squads Only, and that's all he plays on that account.
Well, I think
you're not going to have that shield potion. You're not going to have that legendary throwing axe.
he's gonna run in and be like, wait, what?
I don't know.
But he has been practicing his 1v4s. So even if the rest of the team hasn't showed up, maybe he's got that going for him.
See, for my money, you can get in there, you can queue Hunter all day, and basically then just go play Shaolin in the PPL, and you're good. You're essentially practicing Shaolin when you're playing Hunter. You got your roll, you got your withdraw, you got your bow. It's all good.
I've seen tweets about that where it's everyone's off playing Realm Royale, and we'll see how it goes.
You know,
how do you been skipping scrim time?
Does Shaolin need that little meter on the bow, on the draw?
I think it's I like the sound cue more.
He has the VFX, like his bracers light up and the sound cue.
Yeah.
So I feel that. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Only one way to find out. But predictions for this matchup, then who takes it?
I have Envy this week.
I'm giving mine to G2, but again, I think this is kind of the same thing as Fnatic and Navi. It's like day of, you flip a coin. Yeah, I think you're just as likely to really get one. It just depends on who shows up that week.
Yep.
G2 also, and it is kind of that, I don't know, we'll see what comes out of the woodwork for Envy, how they're feeling that day. But their doubleheader also facing off against SK, which is a very different story, but Wardoom's been really bringing them back into the conversation.
SK are, for me, probably most comparable to VP right now. They've had so many changes so quickly that it's just going to take time. It's just going to take time to figure it out. They have a good roster. They have good players. But I think they got to maybe do a little bit of what Navi is doing right now. They have to expand their champion pools a little bit. I feel they're one of the most limited teams in the league. And if they can do that, and they have a little bit. This past week, I will say, Invocal, Shady, playing some different stuff, doing well, making the right strides towards where I feel they need to be.
They're in a good area, but I think the way you worded it is just perfect, where it's just they need that growing time to be just a team together, where it's like there's not been crazy significant changes, but it's still in that area where, like, I think even Bidey said at one point that it's like 2 splits is what you should really give a team, just to make sure that, like, the first split they're getting together, the second split they're kind of wrapping up everything to make sure that it's all smoothed out, and then that third split they are the team that they're supposed to be. But it's very difficult, especially like if you look at like Splice, the first time no wins, second time no wins. You can't really keep a track record like that going just for the hope that that third time is going to be the charm.
Sure. And I think, you know, you can't have it. I wonder how behind the scenes that this team is run. I know, you know, Bidey talks about it's hard to kick friends sometimes. There is a lot of, I think, friendship on this roster at the moment. And not saying anyone needs to get kicked on SK by any means, but I just wonder, right? A conversation I had actually with Doe and Evil Eye was like, Evil Eye's had to like retry out for his spot on G2 multiple times, like 3+ times or something. And I'm like, really? Like, Evil Eye, of everyone on that roster, he had to retry out? And it's like, I'm wondering if maybe it is just a behind-the-scenes attitude, something like that. Like, hey, like, you got to want to be here if you want to be here, right?
Yeah.
And maybe having to do that is what keeps him looking so crazy good.
Yeah, I've known teams that they put that rule at the start before you even join, where it's at the end of each split or whatever it may be, you have to retry out, and maybe it's a bit more casual in some senses, but because they have that embedded in their head, there is a chance that you don't make it through the re-audition process, then it keeps you on your toes. But as far as who's going to win the match then with Team Envy and SK, who's it going to be?
I've got Envy.
Yeah, Envy across the board, and the love that you gotta have for seeing plays from Tolkien also flexing, and it's become that conversation of who can really play the role that's needed within that composition. And we actually saw some really hot moments. I think we were just talking about Mutu, right?
That's right.
And what he was doing.
It's time to get to the top play section.
Yeah.
Let's roll the clips. What do we got first? Mutu Rampage. That's what we've got up first.
This is number 3 on our top plays. Mutu's been playing a lot of different champions that we're not necessarily used to, stepping onto the Drogos in this case, where he just obliterated the team.
I feel like there were maybe alternative names for this. Instead of Mutu Rampage, it could have just been Mutu kills everyone. Mutu steps up.
But
that's just another day in the office.
Goes through and does things with Drogos that you don't think Mutu should be able to do, but he does it anyway, so you really can't complain.
But this is a big part of the reason why I've got them this week. I think this flexibility and Mutu, I think it was
Mewtwo versus the world.
I can't remember it wasn't even PGS. It was like ESL. Like we did like these ESL weeklies, and I can't even remember the team that he played on or where he came from. But it's one of those moments where you see him playing and you're just like, oh dear God, like this kid is just rolling everyone right now. And it was on Drogos, it was on Stone Keep. Again, I don't remember the name of the team, but so Drogos is like in his wheelhouse. So I like that Navi is like reawakening that and getting that back in the wheelhouse.
Awaken the dragon.
Yeah, awaken the dragon that is Mewtwo.
Our number 2 play also reigns from EU, and it is Simsaloo, who barely survived in an early interaction within the game, which then led to a quadra kill on the Bomb King.
And that doesn't even really tell the whole story. He was full HP when this clip starts, but it's like he was just put really low. Fishy
like
just barely couldn't finish him, and then he comes ripping backing. Sheepa does a lot in this clip though, too, to be fair, but big play from Simsaloo to just set the tone against Fnatic. That's when I was like worried. I was like really worried about my 100% pick rate. This week I'm losing it. I think I'm losing it this week.
Maybe. But that was just an amazing moment to show, man, if you don't get them right in that moment, you can really be punished for it. But number 1 goes to Tolki, who after the previous weekend playing some DPS seemed a little down on himself despite a good performance.
Yeah.
And here with the Quadra, that the best part is just making it seamless into the spray.
Just swinging for the fences and hitting every shot. And it was just like that, the positioning,
the fact
that he got aggressive was, I think, exactly what was necessary. It's one of those areas where it's like some players fall back there because they're like, okay, we just have to fight on the point, and he just goes in.
It's the 2 light swings into the perfect combo heavy, like 180 heavy swing. He just somehow knew exactly where that guy was, but the cleanliness of that play, the efficiency, the effortlessness is what puts Tolki at number 1.
Though not every play is as clean, while Simsaloo was our number 2 for top plays, he is also our fail of the week. Still on the BK, still on Brightmarsh.
Same game.
Yeah, same exact game.
The highs are high and the lows, they are low.
And he started the game with that quadra kill.
I feel like
right at the top.
It felt like he wanted to put his pot. He may have just like popped King Bomb a little too soon there or something. It looked like Bomb King was about to go Poppy Bomb there. Also, that's one of those. You know when you ult, like you Dragon Punch, you start winding something up like, it's time. But then like your whole team dies, and you're like, okay. Now I don't know. I don't know what to do with my hands.
I'm already here, guys. But I think that's not the first time we've seen somebody within the same game get a quadra and then also fail. We've seen it with Rock Monkey. We've seen it before. But as far as moving into our meta discussion, we want to talk first about the not-so-great champs, the ones that we don't really see as often.
Quote-unquote bad. Things that are bad right now we would consider bad when they're locked in, but I think have some merit. The one that I want to talk about is Moji, and specifically around a bug that was fixed with her around Toot, which is without a doubt her most important legendary, at least for competitive play. It's the only one that's ever been chosen. Yeah. But there was a problem with, I think, once you left the cloud, basically when you're inside of it, it's supposed to just be constantly refreshing the healing over time and the movement speed buff, and then it's supposed to carry out of the cloud for 3 seconds after leaving, but it wasn't. And I think now that bug is fixed, the persistent, like once you leave, it was dropping off almost immediately. So now the fact that it'll be more consistent, I think there is room for more Moji to be picked up in a lot of interesting compositions. Things like, I think G2s could probably work at. I think Miracle on console has still been running it, even in spite of that, and looking great on it.
That's one of those things. I think Moji, because like I went with Vivian. I feel like Moji has what's necessary to actually get to that competitive point. I think Vivian is in this area where it's like she has some really niche things in her kit that make her really good, like being able to shred shields really well. Her sentinels for her ult are ridiculously good when used properly, but it's in that area that she just doesn't have the burst. I think that would really bring her into what a lot of the pros would want as their meta.
Right.
Her damage is still really good. If you kind of scaled it, I guess, like the same damage a Bomb King does per game and a good Vivian could do in the same game at the same time, it's like it's going to come out as like the same DPS, but she's just not going to be winning anywhere near as many fights because it's not going to be like, boop, okay, now you're dead. It's I have to sit there and train everywhere you step to make sure I'm hitting every bullet.
Meanwhile,
but I think she still has that place.
You're extremely exposed and very slow moving.
Your shield is like waist up. They just shoot you in the knees and you fall down anyway.
Yeah. Vivian comps tend to be very all in on that Vivian, and if you can kill that Vivian, then that comp pretty quickly falls apart thereafter.
Yeah, so those are ones we're kind of seeing start to trickle in a little bit, but also a little special something for you. We do have points this time, and it's going to be a little different from prior. I have some trivia questions, so
okay,
no
trivia
arbitrary
questions.
numbers of points. I'm just going to give you 10 points, and it's whoever answers it first.
Oh, so whoever answers first?
Yes.
I need a
So
buzzer.
lightning round two.
Do we
I know.
need- yeah, do we
I was
need a
thinking,
buzzer?
I'm like,
I will slam this table every time.
yeah. So I think it's just gonna be like, go ahead, knock your hand on the table for now. Maybe we'll figure something
All right.
out later.
I
And I'll
actually
keep
used
a
to, I used
close
to play
eye.
this game at school. It's called this much. So you got to keep your hand this much, this high above, this much, and then whoever just hits it first. That's our
Yep.
buzzer. But as long as
All
you're
right.
this much, you're good.
That much? Okay.
Give us
so
the question.
Are you ready?
Yes, let's go.
I'm going to miss it every time.
And I'll give you the heads up. This is support themed. So all of the questions are trivia that have to do with support in some way. Just
I
trivia.
only can play support.
I don't play it. Let's go.
But it's true.
Let's
You know,
see. Gabby strikes again, putting Nick in the hole early.
let's see how you know your vocab and your.
Oh, man, okay, now I'm downhill.
All right, cool. So, first question. What is the name of Furia's ultimate?
Wow. I just blanked. I had it for a second, and then I just blanked. Something Pyre. I don't know. Off the top of my head
Don't
right
even
now.
look at me. I've played it nothing but Furia the last 3 days when I've been playing Paladins. Still don't know the name of it. I know her right click and I know her Q, because there's the Pyre Strike, and then actually I've completely forgot her right click anyway. But I have loadouts built around it. Her ult, no idea.
You're digging yourself a hole here. What is it?
You know,
I feel like this
Inflame.
completely went a different way than you thought it was going to.
So you did answer, and it was incorrect. So you have negative 10 points now.
Neat.
I didn't buzz in.
Yeah. So I could.
'Cause I don't know it.
Yeah,
That's how this is going to
that's
go, and this is
correct.
going to be great. I'm going to win just because I have
You know,
0.
victory is that much sweeter when you give them the hope first, then you take it away. All right, let's keep it going.
You ready for the next one? Got your hands
This
ready?
much. We're
This
good.
much.
What is the name of the talent that causes the champion's weapon to now deal 360 damage every 0.4 seconds? Gore.
Binary Star.
Yeah.
Damn it, dude. I
now
was
you got
just
the
off
10
the
points.
mark, dude.
All right. So negative 10.
These are
to
good.
10. Yeah.
I don't get negative 10 for that.
Well,
No,
no,
your
no,
score
your
is
score
still-
is
gotcha.
negative 10.
I thought you were trying to give me another
no,
negative 10
no,
points.
just where you are.
I was like, here we go.
Well, you ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's make a choice.
We're going to have to like
It's nice
slow-mo
and even.
replay some of these.
That would be sick, dude.
That
Yeah,
would
can we get a replay on that? I don't know if I'm, I really think I was pretty damn close there. It might have been a photo finish. But if we can get a replay of the buzz-in, I don't know. I think we could run that one back. Or at least give me 5 points.
Question number 3. What champion is named after the city she destroyed?
Saris.
Yeah.
Easy clap. All right, let's go.
All right. So
Even
now
it
you're
up.
back,
I
you're back to zero.
Crap, he's 20 ahead of me.
almost cursed. I'm getting too far into this. I got to like pull it back.
Now the next one I think is a little easy. So remember, wait till question is ending and then go. You ready? You ready? Who has the Wickerman skin?
Aldaba.
There you go. So now you're back to tied, and it comes down to one question. So whoever gets this one.
Victory is sweetest when you give them hope first, chat, and then take it away.
True story.
The final question. Which PPL support player's real name is Timu?
Spunky.
All right.
That's a
coming
little.
back from the-
real names, dude.
That is my. I will say that is my question. I am a very first. I love casting the first names. I'm
Yeah.
a very
I
first
love
name
his
basis
name,
guy.
too, so
it is cool,
it's
isn't
a
that?
cool
That's like almost a League of Legends champion,
is.
isn't it? Is it exactly?
I
is it
think
Timo?
it's an O instead of
Timo instead
but people
Timu?
say Timu.
That was a
even though it's
very
an
me
O.
question. I feel bad.
So,
Hey, this is the
That
first
was
week
like-
that I've won. All right,
Look,
you've
that was-
bodied me 2 weeks in
This
a row,
was,
bro. I'm over it.
Splice versus SK, where it's like, man, first 2, I got this. I'm feeling good. And then it was just the reverse
The reverse
sweep.
sweep. Whew. I finally won one though, dude. I've lost 2 in a row.
pretty fun though, you know.
That was good. I like that actually. I like
Yeah.
that format
I
better
do
than the
want-
arbitrary Gabby puts Nick in the hole questions.
I had a little more prep this time.
More
Still
right?
hanging with the
objective.
-10,
Dude,
just to
I
make
know.
sure.
I didn't know that was a
just
rule, dude.
reinforcing what I have
Oh, my
heard. So,
goodness.
you
So
know.
wait, it's in Flame.
In flame.
All right, so in like 3 weeks, I'll remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she's not competitively playable yet, so I haven't decided to commit her names to memory.
I triple and quad checked on that one too because I was also thinking it was the Pyro one, but I was wait a minute.
It's not 8 hours of Realm Royale a day. It's just because she's not playable competitively yet that I haven't committed.
Okay, so you wait until the
everything to memory. All right, I got a lot going on up here. I gotta make sure you take it one step at a time.
Man.
Single core processor.
Well, you got your winnings, 20 to
Blessed.
10 here.
What do I
today.
win? A high five from the host. The host
That's
is.
a better high
I won
five than
2 weeks
last
and I
time.
didn't get. Man,
You gotta
can't
ask.
cross my arms in a suit as well as I thought I could.
Well,
I'm just full of disappointment right now.
we're gonna give Gore a moment to try and figure out how to cross his arms in the suit, maybe. And we actually have an interview that he did early on with Moonchopper. So let's take a listen.
Well, we're here with Moonchopper from Renegades, and you've actually been in the PPL for quite a little bit of time now, although you came in, I want to say, kind of fresh towards the end of the first season. And during that first split this year on Splice, you didn't quite find the success I think you wanted. How does it feel being on Renegades now?
It feels really, really good. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I feel like Renegades was a home that I never knew existed until I went there. Especially having 2 players on Renegades that I used to play with in the PGS for a little time. And also being good friends with Kliku and Loki.
And
Make
actually,
really nice.
I think looking, towards the PGS and things like that, we've noticed a lot of new players. I think coming from the PGS. Do you think that's actually really exciting to see a lot of this new blood kind of jumping up and not necessarily replacing the old blood, but being able to keep the competition alive?
Definitely, the tier 2 scene definitely helps the pro scene a lot. Because you're always looking out for fresh blood. You're always looking out for who's gonna be the next player, because you never know, that next player might be a future star player. I came out of nowhere. A lot of people came out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
So it does help the scene a lot. I encourage those who do want to become to get into the PPL to really work hard in the tier 2 scene and maybe stream as well, because that will definitely help give yourself exposure. So.
And actually looking at, not only you, but some of the teammates that you actually had during the first split when you were playing with Splice still, you had, Ricotta, you had Vayne joining you, those guys now still on Splice, or I guess re-picked up by Splice is the best way to really word that. Was that kind of one of those instances where it was just, man, these guys are really good, I think we can do a lot with them?
Yeah, definitely a lot of molding, and time has to go into these players, because it's different within the PPL, and just work ethic is also different. The way you approach practice can also be very different. It can be very serious, as opposed to in the tier 2 scene it'd be different. But no, they had a lot of potential, and they do have a lot of potential, and they've shown it in PPL, and hopefully they just grow stronger, because I believed in them.
Yeah, I think your first matchup was up against Splice, and it ended up going all 5 games, and I was kind of curious to pick your brain about how that set felt, because it was definitely something that I don't think there'd be really that much tension between the 2 teams, but being able to see this new Splice roster come in and actually have not necessarily more success, because they haven't yet found their win yet, but being able to contend with, the likes of you, the likes of SK, and even Envy.
I think the first week was pretty much all up in the air as in terms of teams who had roster changes, because Splice Surge, the current Splice Surge, has played together a lot in the past, so they came in probably with better synergy than the teams of SK and us as well. For sure, personally for me, I felt not entirely comfortable and not entirely synergized with Renegades, just because the off season was so short, and I only played with them for a couple of days before the PPL season started. So yeah.
Being able to kind of touch on that, I mean, you mentioned earlier that it kind of feels like the home that you had never been a part of, and that the beginning of it you hadn't quite fully integrated. At this point, are you guys feeling a lot more comfortable, because you're looking really, I want to say, just at ease with each other?
Oh yeah, definitely. Everything I wanted to do and the time I wanted to spend with Renegades before the first week could not happen, obviously, because time is just finite. However, now that weeks have passed, things feel a lot better, and now we've we've built the fundamentals of like the synergy down. Now it's just comes down to like the small little things, and yeah, I don't know. It feels really good. Can definitely contend against all the other teams now. So feeling really confident.
And I think I've just for one last question, really for the entire thing, the one thing I really want to know, you guys have been on the rise. I think, losing Poison but gaining you has actually brought the team up to that kind of upper echelon of play. G2 and Envy are still looking like monsters, but do you feel like you guys have much more of a chance now to be able to maybe topple them and take away that first or second place spot?
Definitely. It all comes down to like the small little plays and the small little decision making. Like a lot of these maps can go like 3-4 or 4-3, whoever's like in whoever's favor, but it all comes down to like that last play, those last couple of seconds that you don't get in practice because this is a real game. Those last second decisions you make, like to either go aggressive or play passive, are what's gonna decide these maps. Especially just like, towards the end, say it's like a 3-3 situation and like you're both at like 80-80 on the point. Like one person can just over aggress or one person can play too passive and it can cause the whole thing, right? Yeah. And that's when you gotta like cool down, relax or chill out and just realize like, okay, don't panic, don't do anything crazy, just look at what we have and that's it. So I think it comes down to that because you can't get that practice, honestly. It's really hard to try to, repeat that kind of thing in scrims.
It sounds like you guys have, like I guess your mental touchdown, everything's feeling comfortable with you, and I think that's actually really good that you found a home on Renegades. You've been able to find a win now through the PPL, which is something that Splice had just not quite been able to attain. So, I mean, thank you for your time, and I'm actually really happy to see that you guys are being able to make it work the way you are.
Thank you.
I like Moonchopper. You have fun with that interview, Gore?
Yeah, he makes it really easy because he just always has an answer. Like, there was a point, I don't even think I actually phrased a question, and he still answered what I was trying to get at.
Dude, yeah, we found our new interview for the Renegades.
It's the only Moonchopper.
Sorry, Kliku. Sorry, Loki. You guys are cut. We're bringing in the chopper.
I loved the insight that he had, though. A lot of good perspective, and it's nice to know that he feels like he's found a family within this team.
Yeah. I mean, Renegades have always been right there, right?
Yeah.
The Spring Split, they were, up until the last day, they were in the running for that top 2 spot to make the land, to make Vegas as well. They almost made Vegas. It's funny to think about that because Envious Envious were the last team to qualify for Vegas, and they were able to win the whole thing. So Renegades always been right there, and I want to look at what he was talking about. Like, it's hard to recreate like that game day moment, right? And the Renegades have always been that team that does kind of show up. They almost look better like when it's a big game, when it's a big moment. And I think because of that, they'll probably have a lot of room to succeed.
And like right after the interview, I had mentioned, I was like, that was like a really specific answer you had, like the scoreline, everything. And he was like, well, because the game's on Friday, he was like, there was a moment in those games that he got aggressive when he thinks he shouldn't have.
Right.
And that was him like internalizing, like he recognized the lesson that he had learned from that, where it was just like, we don't know if we could have won, but he's like, we definitely didn't, and I think that it was because I got a little bit too aggressive and that kind of 3-3 scenario, and it just fell apart.
That's experience, though. I mean, the more situations, if you've seen something before, right, you just know how to handle it better.
Well, this week, because we usually have Joe on the memes, but we have David on the bloopers.
Oh,
so
boy.
Let's find out what we did wrong.
Buckle up.
Oh, man.
Do, man. You look like you're in that skit where somebody's just got their arms like behind you.
See now what I wanted to say about this.
We'll use those hands to talk about.
Let me see that real jelly. Turn out, you open her jacket pocket, and there's a jelly donut inside. It's not
My breakfast.
My breakfast.
All leading up to one big culmination.
The big old event, the big old booty. HighRiseExpo.com is where you can buy your tickets so you can catch the PWC Console Wars this week.
I didn't even realize you said that.
That lower third, swoopity bloop, boopity swoop.
Pretty accurate.
It's that new Kanye song.
Yeah.
Bars.
So,
wow.
half of it is weird phrases. Half of it
mean-
is us either teaching Gore how to dance or him taking his own flavor to it.
I have more questions than answers after that video, for sure.
I am kind of curious. I feel like because it was a 6-minute
Are you guys
conversation.
live when that's happening?
When we're dancing?
Yeah.
No, it's like in that like about
Right,
to
right,
go
right,
live
right,
period
right.
beforehand when the music's playing. And you're just like, yeah.
I don't know. It feels like, I don't know, sometimes it looks like you're live. But
I feel like-
Evan texting and Evan just like literally like turned off. And you're just like, yeet, yeet. Like that was definitely not live.
There was a 6-minute conversation. I'm kind of glad didn't get in there, but like there was a point last week. It was the last game of the console series where me and Evan were talking about condiments, and like we were running polls in chat as like, do you like sour cream or not? Do you like ketchup or not?
Oh, man.
What are your feels about mayonnaise? Like things like that. And it's just like we were really, really off.
You
But
were
the
on
game
it.
was also a stop, so
Well,
we were just.
Apparently,
In
Nick
an
doesn't
okay
like
area.
jelly donuts, so I guess there's
No,
just
no,
a
no,
lot
that's
of,
not. I honestly don't remember the context of that conversation
I
at
don't like them so.
all. But it was something. I don't know. We were just on our game there. But I don't know. You called HRX the big booty, so I don't know if you're in exactly a
Booty.
position of power to be speaking down to me like this, Gabriella.
Sometimes I choose phrases that in
I got
my
the
head,
booty on my mind.
But it's one of those things like, what are you
I-
gonna say after the big like?
the big
Booty.
old booty. I feel like I just say weird things in general, and then sometimes it's not till I see reactions from people that, that
I
is kind
shouldn't
of
have said that.
that's probably not something
can't
that should have
believe
came
you've
out
done
of my...
this, Gabriella.
Right. But hey, could have been worse. So last thing, really competitive-wise, we have to touch on is the PGS. And first off is the fact that Ares is no longer with SSG.
Yeah, don't know. Kicked. I think it was a kicked situation for a Cot, I believe, aka AT, and that's a name we recognize. Again, I think you can't really say for mechanical reasons. Really, this I feel like probably stems from getting along with them, approach the game. I don't know. Someone's really good friends with a Cot. I can't say. But having watched Ares, and I feel like almost the specific reason he was brought on to SSG wasn't for mechanical reasons or issues.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. I want to see what they're going to be like now without having Ares on there, and like how that success is going to translate not only in their region, but then like they scrim Burrito a lot. They say they scrim a lot of NA teams, and then when we finally do have like another LAN where they come back, how do they actually fare there?
So is there any match in particular that you're looking forward to most with this week of the PGS?
No, because we don't know what they are. It's open bracket.
Well, I guess like region would probably be the better.
I think probably. I mean, I always enjoy North America because I feel like it's one of the most competitive regions. And with Ozone potentially going and playing on one of those PGS teams, I think that's what I would be looking out for most.
I think I'm excited for LATAM this week.
Yeah?
I don't know why. LATAM's. I'm
we
just getting
seen-
a good vibe from LATAM for this week.
Burrito has not qualified. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
just
Okay,
getting
so that's
aware.
probably why.
That's hell. There you go.
This Burrito. Go watch them all the time.
All right.
I feel like everyone's always pushing for a burrito, and hey, everybody, go watch Burrito.
They're
You think
so
we're sponsored
nice.
or something? Because you have to. If you meet them, you watch them, and you're like, it's impossible not to love them.
Oh, yeah, they're phenomenal people.
Yeah, great people. But PGS is part of what we have going on this week. Taking a look at the schedule with PPL, PGS, and PCS starting today at 3 p.m. Eastern. We have our console series for Europe and North America before Tuesday through Friday, going through all of our PGS regions as well as all the PPL matches that we had talked about. Final thoughts, everybody.
Very excited for the G2 Envy matchup. That's the one you want to watch this week, folks. If you watch one PPL game, watch that one.
Great thing to have on your second monitor while you play Realm Royale, because I feel like that's probably going to be
Yes.
the thing. Like, I know I'm probably speaking for both of us, so you have that itch where it's like, man, we can be like go get playing like right now.
Get a drop. I am
What?
hard addicted to Realm Royale right now. Very hard addiction.
Well, everyone, you look like you have a...
Inflame is the name of Furia's ult.
In flame.
So that 2 weeks from now, when Gabby decides to try to bring that one back, you remember.
It's because I think, like, in the text of the old, it says, like, Pyre does it.
Yeah, that's
so
like her whole
why.
thing. She's like the
Yeah.
Angel of Vengeance. Like she's like, I grabbed the pyre and
I would have called it
fought the
Valkyrie's
abyss.
Wings. That would have been way off, dude.
something like that.
But that's a little trivia for you. We covered everything that we have going on this week. Thanks for tuning in to Esports Weekly. Of course, we have our broadcast later for PCS starting at 3 p.m. Eastern, and you can track everything on Paladins Pro on our Twitter. But see you in a little. Thanks, guys.